Welcome back, Fanfield family, and welcome to episode 4 of Out of the Spotlight, a series where we look at little-known or underrated characters and give them the attention they deserve. In this week's episode, we're going to look at a Tholothian Clone Wars era Jedi Master, Gallia. Just a quick note, stay to the end. I made a trailer for next Friday's episode, and it's at the end of this video. Gallia was born on Coruscant, the galaxy's capital planet, in the decades leading up to the Clone Wars. She was born to upper-class diplomats, and as such, she was raised in luxury, rubbing shoulders with the governmental elite. From a very young age, she was surrounded by the ceremony and wealth of her family, and it seemed she was destined for a life of galactic politics, but while she was still very young, she was identified as Force-sensitive and taken into the Jedi Order. Gallia was trained in the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, and her youth was spent learning the ways of the Force. During her training, she spent as much of her free time as she could away from the temple and the upper levels of Coruscant, preferring to explore the Coruscant Undercity. These many excursions showed her the truth of Coruscant, that not everyone lived in a gilded paradise, and through this knowledge she learned to integrate in both the hyper-affluent and the much poorer societies so she could relate with the people better, a valuable skill for a Jedi. By the time Gallia was knighted, the Jedi High Council had recognized her as a valuable source of information and insight. From her upbringing in a politically connected family, she could provide the Council with informed opinions on politics. By 10 years before the Clone Wars, she had attained the rank of Master and was offered a seat on the Jedi High Council. She provided a contrasting perspective to her fellow High Council members. While many of her peers preferred to take a direct approach, Gallia was of the mind that working behind the scenes to attain information was more effective. She set up an information network that allowed her to hear all kinds of information all across Coruscant, even rivaling the Coruscant Security Force's intelligence network. At its height, her network ensured that nothing happened on Coruscant without her knowing about it. Through this network of connections, Gallia was able to serve as a diplomat, working between the Republic and the Jedi. Gallia was the first to warn the Senate and the Jedi about the Trade Federation's suspicious activity around Naboo, and her suspicions proved accurate when the Trade Federation blockaded the planet. Gallia was part of the Jedi strike team that Mace Windu put together to rescue Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker from Geonosis, and was, by extension, present for the start of the Clone Wars. She didn't actually set foot on Geonosis. Instead, she stayed in orbit in her starfighter and coordinated the Republic's naval forces when they arrived. Throughout the Clone Wars, Gallia served primarily in an intelligence-gathering role and didn't see as much combat as her peers. One notable example of Gallia in the field was about a year into the Clone Wars, in the rescue of Jedi Master Eth Koth, who had been captured by General Grievous on Seleucami.
Seleucami? But intelligence reported Grievous has no ships near that sector.
Alongside Anakin and Obi-Wan, she infiltrated Grievous's ship to rescue Eth Koth, a mission that was a success. She also survived being captured by Grievous herself near the end of the Clone Wars. Gallia had a few other outings during the war, the most notable of which was her dispatch to the planet Bray alongside Obi-Wan. The pair investigated a distress signal from the planet, encountering locals transformed into hulking monsters that fed on living energy. They discovered that Count Dooku was behind the issue and fought the progenitor of the monsters, a creature called Ravna. The beast infected and transformed Dooku, but when Ravna ordered Dooku to infect Gallia and Kenobi, Kenobi was able to break Dooku out of the creature's control by jabbing at his ego, telling Dooku that he was a weak-minded puppet. This was enough to snap Dooku out of it, and he worked with Kenobi and Gallia to destroy the castle and everything inside. Gallia met her end shortly before Order 66. With the discovery of new Dark Jedi active in the galaxy, Maul and Savage Opress, she and Kenobi made their way to Florum, where the pair met the Zabrak brothers. After a brief duel, Savage overpowered Gallia and stabbed her in the chest with his sharpened horns, seriously wounding her, then killed her by stabbing her through the back with his lightsaber. For many people, Gallia is most known for the Legends game Jedi Starfighter, where she serves as one of the main playable characters. I personally have not played it, but I have it on good authority that it is a very well-made game, if you're into 3D spaceflight games, which aren't usually my thing. The game takes place shortly before and then during the events of Attack of the Clones, and as the game was released shortly before the movie, it served to introduce elements of the film. Gallia was less fond of battle than many of her contemporaries and preferred working in the shadows to better the galaxy and secure information that she could give the Jedi to help people. She was fiercely intelligent and proved during the Clone Wars that she had a tactical mind. Gallia was a little uncomfortable at receiving the title of Jedi General, as she preferred staying out of the spotlight, but as the incredibly adaptable woman that she was, she quickly adjusted to make the shift from a peacekeeper to a war commander. She had a strong sense of loyalty, both to individuals and to the Jedi Order as a whole, such as offering to help Kenobi hunt for Qui-Gon Jinn's killer. Qui-Gon had been Kenobi's mentor, but he had also been her friend. She was a rare Clone Wars-era Jedi that didn't dismiss things she didn't agree with outright. During her missions with Anakin Skywalker, she quickly saw that she would never agree with him in his reckless and insane tactics, but she recognized them as effective and thus didn't condemn them.
Define pretty close.
Close enough to get the job done. So, was that close enough for you?
Any closer and we'd be flying down hallways.
Next time.
She was also able to see the good even in people she wasn't fond of. She wasn't the biggest fan of Anakin, but she did look favorably on his quick thinking and decisiveness in battle. As a Tholothian, Gallia didn't age nearly as fast as humans, and she possessed the typical scaled scalp and 8 head tendrils. Gallia didn't focus as much on lightsaber combat as other Jedi, as she preferred intelligence work, but when pressed, she used Form 5 Gem So to complement her natural athleticism and acrobatics. She was skilled enough to hold her own against General Grievous during the war. Twice. On the subject of her lightsaber, Gallia had 2 throughout her life. Her first lightsaber curiously had a red blade, though it was destroyed prior to the events of the Phantom Menace. When the Sith revealed themselves on Naboo, Gallia switched her rare red crystal for a blue one, as with the red blade there might be connotations of connections to the Sith. She also, of course, had her Delta 7B Aether Sprite class starfighter, with which she was an exceptional pilot, though not on the level of someone like Anakin Skywalker. Gallia generally wore the standard Jedi Master robes, but during the Clone Wars she adopted elements of the armor developed on Kamino for the Clone Army, such as white bracers. She also wore the traditional Tholothian headdress, a band of leather with a lattice of fine chains tracing the scales of the wearer's scalp. In canon, we have no information on Gallia's master or apprentices, but in Legends we know of at least one apprentice, Siri Tachi. In The Phantom Menace, she was portrayed by former model Jean Clark, and her appearance in Attack of the Clones was just reused stock footage. She was voiced by Angelique Perrin in the 2008 Clone Wars series. Gallia is one of those sort of background characters that has a ton of lore behind them if you know where to look. Between games, comics, TV shows, novels, and more, there's a lot to cover with the character. While she's not one of my favorite characters, I was asked to cover her by a friend of the channel, and I felt that she fits the premise of this series well enough to include her. Thanks for watching! What do you think of Gallia? Did you learn anything new about her from this video? Is there something I forgot that you think is really important? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to watch the trailer at the very end of this video. If you liked what you just watched, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. Everything you do helps to tell YouTube that you liked my video and that they should recommend it to other people. There's a new video every single Friday, frequent polls and posts, and the occasional bonus video here and there. Again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.